Hey there. Have you ever taken a moment to just feel that air? I know, it seems like it's not really quite the same as breathe, unclench, but really truly feel that air. I am so thrilled that you are here. Thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who have not yet met in person, my name is Amber Griffiths, and I'm a maker of legends and a brand strategist. And I want to talk to you today a little bit about feeling that air, taking the moment, breathing it in, unclenching, and really truly tapping into a moment of joy that can take the most tedious of tasks and make them a wild adventure. So it's that time again. Grab your legend pack, crank that speaker to 11. Welcome to Legend. Hello there, my friend. I just got back from one of my most, I think it is going to stay on my top 10 list of travel experiences for my entire life. It was one of those times when the drive was great. The weather was amazing. The people were fabulous. The food was good. We didn't go for the food. This is one of those few trips we actually didn't go for the food. We went for the experience. We went for the weather. We went to go hiking. And we drove 9 hours each way. We drove to the mountains of Colorado, down in southern Colorado, Pagosa Springs. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this little town. It's so cute. We kept trying to figure out if it was like a smaller park city or like a bigger Golden, Colorado. Like, I don't know, but there was such a small town feel to it, even though there's people there from around the world. And they have these incredible hot springs. So just brace yourself. Like, we're going to talk about hot springs in the next couple of weeks because there's some seriously fascinating things going on there. But as we took this, as we took this trip, there was tons of planning to go along and trying to make sure everybody was comfy and make sure we had all the things we had, make sure the dogs were taken care of, make sure the car was going to be okay, all those things. And as we're driving out of Salt Lake City, it was about 92 degrees. Like it had not got below 82 degrees that night. It was that night. And so it had been hot and sticky and just blah, the whole, I mean, it just was, we were over 100 during the day and not below 80 at night. And so it really didn't have a chance to cool off. So we start driving, and as we're getting out of Utah and pulling into Colorado later that afternoon, and it was like 74 degrees, right? Like it was just so amazing. And it's this little path that is going through kind of mountains. Like there's great big trees on both sides, and it's kind of this windy road. And we rolled down the windows, and simultaneously, my spouse and I put our hand out the window and went, "Ah, feel that air, feel that air." And we just laughed because about feeling the air. And it wasn't just about the fact that we did it at the same time. Um, One of my other all-time favorite trips, there were several when I was a youth, but one of the times that we went to Texas, my father spent his summers there. My grandmother is native Texan. I have Texan in my blood and I love it, and I'm proud of that particular level of heritage. But in order to kind of reconnect with his youth, he was taking all of us kids on a road trip to Corpus Christi, to San Antonio, to Beaumont, to visit all the family and see Texas for what it is. It's a 29-hour drive from where I was living at the time in Utah to Corpus Christi, Texas. 29 hours. Now, let me pile on just a little bit. 29 hours in an old Dodge van with 6 kids in the back for the first one trip, 8 kids for another, all piled into this van, 2 parents, 8 kids, driving 29 plus hours through the desert, through into Texas, down into the southern coast of Texas. My father had this really amazing, and my mother too. My mother taught us songs on the way there. Like we had fried chicken, we had, like there were all things that we had inside this little van to try to make it more memorable adventure and a better trip. And my father was one of those that would make like he would be pointing out the rocks and the formations in the rocks, and he had a way of making a 29-hour trip really an adventure. There were different things he would point out and stories he would tell. And got on the CB radio with my cousins who were in another car going caravanning with us. And even this 29 hours. I can't even, I mean, think about yourself as a 10-year-old or as a 13-year-old with 7 siblings driving for 29 hours in a van. Um, but one of the things that my father always did as we left Utah specifically is he would stick his hand out the window and say, feel that air. Feel that? Do you feel that? Feel that air. Whether that's because it was cooler or warmer than he was used to, if it was wetter because Utah is a desert, and if you move in out of it, there are other places that have more moisture in them, especially when you get into to Texas, and parts of Texas have 100% humidity most days. But it was this thing that I can see look on his face. I can hear him doing it. I can see him doing it in my mind's eye. I think it was probably one of the first stories I ever told my spouse about my father when we first got together was my dad would always do this thing. He would stick his hand out of the window while we were driving 70, 80 miles an hour, feel that air. And part of it was him appreciating the difference and letting us know, kids, this is part of why we're leaving Utah, is to experience something new and see something new and get it out there. But 30, 40 years later, my spouse and I doing that in the mountains of Colorado wasn't just about feel that air in Colorado and feel the difference between, we traveled all over the world. It wasn't just that. It wasn't just to allow my child an experience of that. It was a way for simultaneously for me to tap back in and connect to that really amazing story that I remember from my childhood. It was a way for me to connect with my father, even though he's passed. It was this moment of sheer joy, just for a moment of, yeah, like all those memories of all that fun comes flooding back. And just by feeling that air, I'm able to make this 9-hour trip with just one child, 2 adults, one child, this 9-hour each way trip more memorable, and it connects it to trips from before, and it makes this thing not so mundane, not so tedious. It could have been a really long drive, and it was plenty long, but something like that, it's like we call them member berries. It's remember this, remember that, it's like put that back in the box of pantry, and here's all these reasons why your memories come flooding back. But it really is a way to tap into that joy, that absolute thrill of the emotional connection with my father and the memories of being a child and going all over San Antonio and Beaumont and playing on Padre Island with the seagulls. And all of that comes rushing back in an instant. In an instant. Where are you doing that? Where are you taking an opportunity to feel the air? Is there something? I mean, business gets hard, right? If it's creating content, if it's creating social media, if it's working on sales letters, if whatever part of that business that you have to do, that you haven't outsourced, that you haven't delegated yet, that you're still doing, but it's one of those things you're like, I just, arg. What is your version of feel that air? What can you tap into that makes it not a tedious, terrible thing, but makes it more of an adventure? What can you, in that moment, whether that's sometimes it's about creating that legend burst, right? It's not just a task. This is a legend burst, and we're going to sit down and we're going to create this the right way. If you don't know what a legend burst is, drop me a note and I will explain it. But where in your business can you take a breath and tap into something that is joyful in business, something that is joyful in your past, that helps you feel that air, that allows you to connect in a way that it removes the mundane, it removes the tediousness of the daily whatever, and it lights you back up in a way that even if they're completely unrelated, your perspective has shifted, and now it's fun, now it's a game, now it's something that you're excited to go do because your frame of mind has completely changed. How do you feel that air? How do you engage those past, the things you've had in history, the things in your business history and your personal history that lighten everything up, that bring more joy to it, that bring more excitement, that change the way you look at it? Drop me a note below. Let me know how you feel that air. Let me know if you're taking time to breathe and unclench and experience something new for what it is. It is all about celebrating the process, celebrating those pieces of it that, yeah, we're still sitting in the car. Yes, we're still driving. Yes, we're still listening to heaven knows what on the radio, because I will tell you right now, some of those radio stations, they were just fun to see what was coming on next because they were so craziness. Yes, we're still doing all of that. But how do we celebrate the moment? How do we bring back the excitement and the joy and the ah of every moment? How do you celebrate your processes? I'm excited to hear how you're doing it. Drop me a note. Say, hey, Amber, you know what? My favorite way to celebrate is this. My favorite way to feel the air is this. Or, you know what, Amber, I don't think I ever feel that air. How do I do that? I can't wait to see what you're doing with it. I can't wait to see how you're celebrating, how you are feeling that air. Drop me a note with the hashtag feel that air. Until I get to see you again, until we get to road trip together and feel that air together, rock on.